Members Friedman.
Here.
Jarian.
Here.
Quintero.
Here.
Weaver.
Here.
Chair Manukian.
Here.
Roll call for the Housing Authority.
Authority members Friedman.
Here.
Manukian.
Here.
Mincy.
Here.
Najarian.
Here.
Parazian.
Here.
Weaver.
Here.
Chair Quintero.
Here. Can we have your report, please?
Agenda for the July 19, 2011 joint public meeting of the Redevelopment Agency and Housing Authority was posted on Thursday, July 14, 2011 on the bulletin board outside City Hall. Before you this afternoon is the Director of Community Development regarding proposal to enter into an affordable housing agreement with Mercy Housing California and a California nonprofit corporation in support of development of an affordable multifamily rental housing project at 203 through 215 West Los Feliz Road. Council resolution making findings with respect to
We can't have a
expenditure-
council resolution today.
Well, we're going to get there.
Okay.
Yeah.
respect to the expenditure of low and moderate income funds. At B is agency resolution making findings with respect to the expenditure of low and moderate income funds. At C is authority resolution appropriating $4,550,000 to provide funds for the project. At D is authority resolution making findings under California redevelopment law and conditionally approving an affordable housing agreement between the Housing Authority and the Mercy Housing California nonprofit corporation. At E is the authority motion approving a home action plan amendment.
Mr.
Thank
Chair.
you, Mr. Garcia. Regarding the council resolution, item 1A.
Right. As Mr. Chair, as you already noted, the item 1A is a council resolution. This was intended to be a joint meeting that included the council as well. There was an oversight that the council part of that was not agendized. So the Housing Authority and the agency can take actions with respect to this project. The council item will have to come back next week. We'll bring that item back, and if the authority and the redevelopment agency approve this project today, then it'll be the executive director's signature on that agreement will be contingent upon the council approving the subsequent resolution. So, short answer: the council item will be coming back next week.
Thank you. Can we have a report from? Yes, Mr.
Before we get to the
Najarian.
report, Mr. Chair, Chairs, I will have to recuse myself from sitting in on this matter due to the fact that one of the parties involved in this transaction, Catholic Healthcare West, has a wholly owned subsidiary known as Glendale Memorial Hospital. Glendale Memorial Hospital, in this case, will be receiving, will be expending $250,000 or greater, and possibly receiving $1 million or more in income over the life of this. I received a gift of travel expenses in May on a trip to Armenia with the Chief Operating Officer of Glendale Memorial Hospital, and accordingly I will recuse myself from any deliberation.
Thank you.
At this time, if you're ready,
Yes,
I'm just going to ask Mike Fortney to come on up. He's our housing project manager, and he'll take us through the project.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Housing Authority board members and Redevelopment Agency board members. I'm Mike Fortney, your housing project manager. I'm going to present the item today, the project at 203 through 215 West Los Feliz. To give you some background, on April 26th, the Glendale Housing Authority, this group, directed community development staff to negotiate the terms of an affordable housing agreement for the development of a new affordable multifamily rental housing project at 203 through 215 West Los Feliz with Mercy Housing California. The developer proposes to develop a 53-unit project that will be reserved for occupancy for lower-income households with a priority provided to veterans. It's an approximately $24.26 million project, and it is proposed to be funded not only from the Housing Authority, but also tax credits through the State of California, City of Industry funds, and Federal Home Loan Bank funds, or AHP funds. The amount of assistance from the authority requested is $4,532,622. Since the April hearing, CD staff has been working with the developer on various elements of the project in order to bring the affordable housing agreement to you today. After numerous scoping meetings with planning division staff who are here and present if you have any questions.
hang on a second. I'm going to I'm going to have to step off for a minute. Could you take over the meeting, please?
Staff, Eric Kraus and Stephanie Reich, who are very much involved in the project, they're here in the audience if you have questions. We brought the project to the Design Review Board for review on a preliminary basis on June 30th. The DRB was very pleased with the design of the project. They were impressed with how quickly or how far it had developed in such a short amount of time. They did have some recommendations which were attached to the staff report, but ultimately voted unanimously for the project to move forward to final design review.
Thank you.
Sorry. Community development staff has also been negotiating the terms of the HA. Again, the requested subsidy is $4,532,622. The developer will then apply for AHP funds in October in the amount of $520,000. In the following month, in November, apply to the City of Industry for funds of $3.1 million. And then next year, in March, they will apply for the tax credits in the amount of $9.9 million, approximately. So to give you information on the site again, 203 through 215 West Los Feliz. It's directly across the street from Glendale Memorial Hospital. The owner is Catholic Healthcare West and Glendale Memorial Hospital. Its current use right now is 101 parking spaces that Glendale Memorial employees use. It is in the South Branch specific plan. The site is 35,300 square feet, which is roughly 0.8 of an acre. We have an estimate for land at $2.9 million, which works out to $82 per square foot. That is just an estimate at this time. The development team is Mercy Housing California. Ben Phillips, who is the vice president, is here in the audience, and I'd like to turn it over to him as soon as I'm done with my presentation so that he may say a few words. Mercy, just so you know, is a national affordable housing developer. They have developed over 38,000 units nationwide. Mercy Housing Management would be the resident managers of the property. They are affiliated with Mercy Housing. They manage 16,000 units nationwide, so they're also very, very large. Mercy Housing in this deal will not only provide a full-time resident manager like we have in our other tax credit projects, but they'll also have a full-time equivalent resident services coordinator. New Directions is also part of this project. They currently serve 220 veterans with round-the-clock care, and they're currently developing 147 more units for veterans. So they will be a part of the project. They will. They're brought into this project because of the veteran preference in the project. Gigi Zabo, I hope I didn't say that wrong. I apologize. She's here in the audience if you have any questions for New Directions. The general contractor, the construction lender, and the tax credit investor are all entities that have not been selected yet. They'll be selected at a later date, and the Housing Authority will have approval over those. We also, on April 26th, we had a different item before you where you approved a due diligence checklist whereby we conduct due diligence on all prospective developers. So I just wanted to say that Mercy did submit all the documents required under that due diligence checklist. Staff reviewed all of those documents and didn't have any concerns. Staff also inspected 6 of Mercy's projects in Southern California, 1 down in San Diego, I believe 3 in Orange County, and the remaining 2 in Los Angeles. And we are generally very pleased with the projects. All of them very different. The one project in downtown Los Angeles, 1500 South Grand, is actually very, very similar to the project that they're proposing here in Glendale. So it was a really unique opportunity for us to see exactly what they were proposing for us here at Glendale. And although we were generally very impressed with the project, there were items that we thought weren't good. We would like to see better in Glendale, and so we worked those out with Mercy Housing, and they are willing to incorporate those little differences. One thing being that it wasn't a green building on the downtown project. We'd like to see it, more attention to the greening of the building. So project description, again, it's a 53-unit project. 52 will be reserved for the low income. 1 will be a manager's unit. It's a modern design, ground floor commercial element to it. Right now, there's there's no assignment of that commercial space. It's a 2,000 square foot space. It could be rented as a commercial space, or it could be used as a really any use. It could be for New Directions could possibly be housed in that. It was just part of the project, part of the design, and I'll let the architect speak to this more. But there is an emphasis to try to make the southwest corner of the building more prominent. And we wanted that ground floor retail, or at least that look of retail, so we had that design into the building. I apologize, I failed to mention, on the due diligence, we also contacted various cities throughout Southern California that have done these deals with Mercy Housing, and all of them had good things to say about Mercy. Back to the project description, the unit mix of the 53, there are 15 one-bedroom, 18 two-bedroom, and 23 bedroom units. So it'll be a mix of family and singles probably. The zoning allows 35 units per acre. The density bonus, which is boosted 35% greater, would bring it up to 48 units. So what they're proposing, 53 units, is even denser than the density bonus. The affordability mix, there are 8 units that are reserved at 30% of AMI, 8 at 40% of AMI, 26 at 50% of AMI, and 10 at 60% of AMI. When we get further and further to this, it's most likely we're going to have to bring the deal back to you again. If there are any cost savings that we can identify between now and then, we have the option of either reducing our subsidy, or we may want to buy down some of these units, get them even further affordable. Financing the project, I talked about that a little bit more, but again, they're looking to get nearly $10 million, $9.98 million in tax credits. City of Glendale, they're requesting $4,532,000 from. City of Industry, $3.1 million. In permanent loan, they believe they'll get $3.2 million. And what we have budgeted right now is for Glendale Memorial Hospital to pay for the 101 spaces, $2,525,000. I should elaborate on that a little more. The project also includes, I talked about it's got 3 levels of parking, and then on the one is subterranean, 2 levels are above grade, and then the residential is on the podium, 3rd floor up, and then with the 2,000 square feet of ground floor retail. Of that parking, though, only 101 spaces are going for the project itself. An additional 101 spaces will be to replace the surface spaces that Glendale Memorial employees use now. So Glendale Memorial would pay for that parking. We've got a budget of $2,525,000, but that is not an agreed upon amount yet. So just to talk a little bit about the deal terms, in our previous deals, we owned the land and then leased the land for 99 years to the developer. In this case, Glendale Memorial Hospital owns the land, Glendale Memorial and their parent company, CHW. So they would lease the land to Mercy. We would just be a lender in the project. That has not been negotiated yet. The acquisition of that, or that 99-year lease has not been settled between Mercy Housing and Glendale Memorial at this time. But the affordable housing agreement has us lending the money, putting a 55-year affordability covenants in place. The money that we put in would be secured. It'd be a loan secured by a leasehold deed of trust. It would be a residual receipts loan. And then things that Mercy would require to do, one of the first things, one of the most important things for a project is site control. They don't have the site control yet, as I've mentioned. So in the affordable housing agreement, we're giving Mercy 60 days to get an option agreement executed between them and Glendale Memorial Hospital. And then an additional 60 days from that point to enter into the lease with Glendale Memorial. We have the option, if that does not happen, to cancel the affordable housing agreement. In addition to that, Mercy then has to go out and secure all the other funding sources. In October, the AHP funds, in November, the City of Industry funds, and in March, the tax credit funds. And there are other dates. Those are just the first dates that they'd be able to apply for those. There are other dates that they'd be able to apply to as well. So with all of that, I'd like to turn it over to Ben with Mercy Housing. He's the Vice President of Mercy Housing, and he'd like to say a few words about the project. And then we also have the architect who is here, and he is willing and able to make a brief 5-minute presentation if you like.
Brief 5-minute presentation? You said?
Yes.
Good afternoon, board members. Again, my name is Ben Phillips. I'm the Vice President and Regional Director for Mercy Housing here in Southern California. Mike did a very good job of introducing us, so I won't add to that. Just tell you a little bit about the genesis of the development. We were approached by Housing Authority staff several months ago at the direction of the board, as we understood the board was interested in developing housing opportunities for veterans or exploring what could be done for veterans in the city. And the staff actually initially contacted New Directions as a nationally known and respected services provider for this returning veteran population. And Mercy had been working with New Directions for a couple of years on some development concepts where Mercy and New Directions would work together to develop properties, a variety of different types of properties, either properties that would serve individuals who are in need of supportive housing to live independently, who may be returning with traumatic brain injuries or other issues that are challenges for them into returning to civilian life, families as well, and we also explored some senior housing opportunities that would be appropriate for a veterans population. After presenting a couple of these ideas to staff and working through them, we were also reaching out to our partners. We have a strategic relationship with Glendale Memorial Hospital and its parent corporation, Catholic Healthcare West. Mercy Housing is sponsored by several congregations of women religious, Catholic sisters, and so are a lot of these major Catholic-sponsored healthcare systems. And we have similar missions and frequently work together on developments. In fact, the development in downtown Los Angeles is across the street from and on the surface parking lot of a hospital in downtown LA that's operated by one of these organizations. So we reached out to Glendale Memorial. It turned out that they had some properties that they were interested in us taking a look at. And as we were engaging in that conversation, it became clear that the city and the Housing Authority had some funds that were in jeopardy of being lost if they weren't reprogrammed to another effort. And so we spent, after you acted in April, at the end of April, we spent the last 60 days or so developing this development concept based on one of the proposals that we had been talking about with the city. And I have to say, we really got a great deal of cooperation and assistance. 60 days is a very short period of time to develop that stack of information you have in front of you, from a detailed design, further developing the services concept with New Directions. I should again acknowledge Gigi, who's here and can answer any specific questions you might have about the services needs of residents. But as Mike mentioned, we would anticipate targeting marketing for the entire development and providing a preference in leasing to households, including a veteran. And we would also propose to set aside 12 units for people who are in need of additional support to live independently as veterans. And there are some specific subsidies available, both from the federal government and local governments, that can assist us in providing that set aside of units. So that's sort of the story about how this development came to be. And we're really excited about the opportunity to work with the city on this. And I would like just to invite Tom up to walk you through the design that we developed in partnership with city staff.
Good afternoon, council members. Tom Shea from Tagawa Smith Martin Residential Architects for this project. If I could just take a very brief 5 minutes, kind of explain, walk over the project with you. We started this project essentially looking from the outside in to the inside out. Outside in meaning beginning on sheet 4 of your package, going around the site, understanding what the view corridors are, what will the public see of the site, and then really focusing on those areas. From inside out, we develop a courtyard for the residents and make sure that there's ample natural light and ventilation, capturing the views of the mountains to the north and to the west. So on the site plan was really kind of a coalesce of forces kind of looking from the outside in and then desires from the inside out. At the same time, we toured a couple projects in the city with the staff as well as out of the city to kind of understand what are the good essentials of housing, the qualities that we want to maintain and preserve and accentuate for our project. If I could walk you through the floor plan really quickly, on Los Feliz, as Mike mentioned earlier, we started with a commercial corner at the southwest corner. The reason why it's here because as Los Feliz kind of turns around to the west, this is really kind of the focal point of the site in terms of people traveling along Los Feliz. So we really wanted to do something special here. That became the commercial. The residential lobby is also off of Los Feliz. And then the parking beyond that, which is hidden from the main street. And again, this includes 101 residential parking as well as 101 replacement parking of the parking on the site. On the courtyard level, we arranged the building in a U shape, allowing a courtyard in the middle that has a tot lot, has a laundry, so it's very easily accessible. In addition, we took a unit out of here to provide view back out to the community from the courtyard. And then I think this is a great idea that the staff came up with, which was to step the building down toward the north to respect these lower height multifamily buildings, but also incorporate those step downs with accessible roof gardens. And so the residents will be able to directly access those roof gardens, which then will have a view to the north. And then, as Mike mentioned, we felt that contemporary design would work great for this context. The hospital across the street is contemporary, as well as many commercial uses along Los Feliz. And so we're proposing a design that has a little bit of traditional, such as hardy siding, but then it has glass, it has stucco, it has metal awnings, and also in an attempt to kind of break up the massing of this building by using colors and materials. So this is the elevation along Los Feliz. This is the main front elevation. This actually, the site allows itself to really have three front facades because it's seen going eastward on Los Feliz, going westward on Los Feliz, as well as if you're traveling on Los Feliz. So we paid very special attention to all three sides of this building. As you can see, they're well articulated with a lot of enhanced materials. This is another side elevation. And the rear elevation showing step down. We have the garage underneath the podium, and then the residential units above. I'm here for any questions. Thank you.
Questions? No?
I have a question. I'm not sure if it's for the architect or for Stephanie Reich, but I don't have in my staff report what the Design Review Board conditions of approval were. So I was wondering if you could just briefly go through them, only if they're major. If they're very minor changes, then I just want to know how much this project, these renderings will change based on their review.
Good afternoon, Council Chair Friedman and Council members. Stephanie Reich, Senior Urban Designer, Planning. To answer your question, the DRB was very happy with the project. Because we took it for preliminary review, since there are some other entitlements the project will need, the DRB, we wanted to get a sense of what the board members felt and how, as the project would be developed, they would recommend it would be developed. And so they mostly had comments on the materials and the detailings. There was some comments to simplify the massing. There is the record of decision in your packet. But overall, they were very pleased with the project with the project and the progress of the design.
Okay. And how are they going to accomplish simplifying the massing?
That's something that we'll work together on. Something that we talked about in our meetings is that in an effort to reduce the overall sense of massing, because the context is very low on the adjacent sites, they did wind up breaking it up maybe a little bit too much. So there would be a possibility of combining some of the forms. Some of the smaller forms, like in the image, the yellow and the green forms can be combined to make a little bit of a less visually noisy massing.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? I do have some questions. I'm not from the design point of view, actually. And just for the record, I'm not a big fan of modern design, but I guess in that area it works fine. Is the housing parking, is it park per code? What is the required parking for 53 units on that?
It is not park per code. Part of the SB 1818 is to...
And what is the required parking for that?
I would have to ask our... Eric.
I think it's on the thing.
The parking, as Mike, is per SB 1818. It's essentially for one bedroom is 1 stall per unit. For 2 and 3 bedroom, it's 2 stalls.
Give me a total.
I'm sorry. The total that we're providing for is 91 stalls.
What is the required?
The question is, what would the code require if this were not affordable housing project?
According to your report, it says 200, and you're providing 202.
No, are you providing 101 or 91?
We're providing 101 spaces for the
Housing.
replacement parking and 101 spaces for the parking and commercial element.
Yeah.
Okay, so what is the actual required for the housing and commercial?
Eric Cross with the Community Development Department. The 101 includes the required code parking for the project, the residential units under SB 1818 rules, and then also for the commercial at I think it's 2.5 per thousand. So they do meet the code requirement for both the commercial and residential component.
Eric, I think the question is, what if this were not an SB 1818 project, what would the code require?
Well, I don't know. Is that
I
the
don't
question?
have
That is a question. I want to know how many. If I had to build 53 units, what would I have to provide?
It would be 2 spaces for 1-bedroom units. Then it would be the
So we don't have a total for this project at this point.
We have not calculated total as if it was not an affordable housing project, correct?
Okay, I guess I'll calculate it later. Second, what is the density allowed on that 0.63 acre?
Oh, yes. Per code, it's 35.
35?
35 units, yes.
And we're doing 53 here.
Yes. SB 1818 would allow a minimum 48. That's 35% above code, and then we're going 5 even above that.
Okay, why are we going 5 above that?
It was our thought to get as many units as we could on it. I mean, it's based...
Your staff, right?
Yes. Well, it was everything that you see before you.
Staff's thought was to go as many units as possible?
Not as many units as possible, as many units as feasible. And everything that you see before you is the developer and staff working together.
And how did you determine that 5 more units are feasible than 5 less?
It's a matter of looking at, the architects working out the floor plan and seeing how many are realistically possible, and then translating that how much that affects the sources and uses of the project.
Okay, all right. So the additional units were not something staff pushed, it was
No.
worked together with the developer?
Yes, we did work with the developer.
And what is the square foot cost of the total project?
Oh, I'll have to look up that number.
The reason why I'm asking is because we had, not me, but historically, there have been projects that have cost quite a bit more
Yes.
than this. I want the public to know what the total cost of the project is, what the required parking is, and what we're voting for today, so that the public is aware
Yes.
that, yes, it is an affordable housing project, and these are the specifics of the project as well.
You know what? I would have to dig for the per square foot cost, but what I did prepare for you, oh, you can do that. But what I did prepare for you was a comparison of this project and all the 9% tax credit projects that we've done in the last 6 years, so that you could compare those.
Okay.
The per unit subsidy that's being requested of the Housing Authority is $85,000.
Yes.
That is the lowest subsidy of any of our 9% tax credits. Our project, Metro City Lights, the first ADI project we
Yes.
did in 05, that was at $89,000. Compare that to the Vassar City Lights project that was most recently. That subsidy per unit was $193,655 per unit. So we're less than half of the subsidy per unit on this project. And then-
I understand, but in terms of some of these projects, there were costs that were stated in the public that some of these projects cost $700 a square foot. I want to make sure that this project is not in those numbers.
Yes.
I want to make sure. I don't want to make sure. I want to find out what the total square foot cost is for this project.
Okay, and I think I heard Ben say that he could answer that specific question.
Okay.
I could tell you about the total cost of construction and the cost per unit. Compare those numbers to all of our other tax credit projects that we've done. In short, it's less than the recent ADI projects. It's comparable to the Gardens on Garfield project in terms of overall development costs and cost per unit. And it's notable to say, too, that this is I don't think I mentioned this before, this is a Davis-Bacon project, so there'll be higher wages with the respect to the construction, which was also true of Gardens of Garfield, was not true on the other.
That's fine. I just wanted to get a few numbers out there. Another concern for me as well, and some of the individuals who came up, and I'm sorry, I don't remember your name, mentioned as well that some of the, and I will read what was in the report, approximately $3.1 million are at risk of being recaptured by the Department of Housing and Urban Development due to the default of 327-333 Salem. With the goal of preventing this loss, it is proposed that the Housing Authority invest in this. This is kind of problematic for me. Would this project be feasible if these funds were not available to be reinvested in this project?
Yes, we do have sufficient funds aside from the funds that we're trying to save.
No, that's not what I asked. If there were no funds that needed to be reallocated because of the fear that we might lose them, would this project go forward without those funds?
Yes, if I understand your question correctly, if there was no jeopardy on the $3.1 million, would we still go forward with this project? Is it still feasible? And the answer is yes.
Would our investment be the same?
Yes.
$4.5 million?
Yes.
Then why put that comment in the report saying that?
The reason we put that comment in the report is because there's a very real deadline of July 31st.
Yeah, but in the whole scheme of things, we still have $3.1 million hanging out there.
Not if this project's approved.
No, but
If I may, Mr. Chair, I think that the comment is in the report with respect to the timing of the approval of the project, not necessarily whether or not it's worthy of this amount of funding.
thank you very much. I do have a card. The city attorney was very clear, and I understood what he said.
Okay.
I do have a card. Are there any other questions from staff? I will probably have some more questions later, but I want to hear from the public as well. Mr. Milano?
Mr. Chair.
How many minutes do you require? 3 minutes enough?
I think so. Thank you very much. I appreciate
Thank
that. Redevelopment Chair Manukian, members of the Redevelopment Agency and City Council, I think it's a joint meeting. Well, the Housing Authority, I believe that Glendale is especially fortunate in having 3 hospitals so strategically placed throughout the city who take such ownership with regard to the communities they serve. I think that this project is probably one of the most meritorious ones that I've seen, in particularly because it really addresses a need that I've seen not addressed for a long time. And Mr. Quintero has taken a lead in highlighting the fact that veterans are bearing a significant, they're carrying a significant burden in their veterans and their families. And in one of my previous meetings before the City Council, I stated that a recent statistic that I heard that there are about 320,000 veterans of recent wars who are undergoing or who are in need of physical therapy. And this is huge. I mean, these are people who have not only lost their limbs, blindness, significant impact on their body, their faces, people lost their vision. But even for those veterans who have not, their families have taken quite a financial burden. I mean, it's a horrendous hit. And they don't necessarily get paid that well for the work and the sacrifices that they've done. I served in Vietnam, and believe me, one term was more than sufficient. I cannot imagine people doing 4, 5, 6 tours of duty on this thing. This is horrendous what it must be doing to their families. So in that regard, I've obviously urged for what is in your hearts already to support this project. But I do think that we all need to look at the accountability, and I would like to know is what is the cost per unit for this project. I know you were asking for the per square foot, but I think that we need to address those costs as well, because the more money, the more judicious that we are with the funds that are available, the more families that we can serve. And it is my hope that the city will take a look in the future at the cost of these developments to make sure that we are expanding the opportunities to even larger and larger number of families who've contributed so much. I also like to know what the city will do with the park impact fees in order to expand the opportunities for their youth and these families' youth to partake in parks and recreation. And also, if the city is going to be doing anything with regard to a job fair to hire locally for people who are going to be hired to work in this project. I'd like to ask those questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, are there any other questions from Mr. Quintero?
Yeah, I am happy we're continuing to move forward with this project. There's no question that there's a need for this housing for veterans, for the younger disabled veterans that are coming back from Afghanistan and Iraq. Many of them disabled due to concussions and IEDs, that type of injury. And then there's also a need for housing for older veterans, Korean-era veterans, Vietnam vets, etc. I'm veterans of World War I, like Mr. Weaver. I'm particularly happy that really this is a template for what I hope is going to be cooperation with the VA. The Veterans Administration has a huge burden ahead of it, and so far they haven't exactly been succeeding. This is nothing new. If you follow the history of that agency throughout the years, it always has to catch up to the needs of the veterans. But at any rate, this would be the beginning of what I hope would be some cooperation with the Veterans Administration, not only in some of the programs that hopefully could assist these veterans, but also just a concept of housing. In the past, the VA has built these sort of institutional housing units. This is not that template. This is a different template, and I think it'll be something new for the VA. It's a perfect location across the street from the hospital for the needs of these vets and for any outpatient activities that might take place. In addition to that, it is right literally one block from our Verdugo Job Center, where we have a veterans rep that's assigned to the Employment Development Department. And in addition to that, we also have our own veterans program that we've been operating for a number of years, and it's been very successful. It's fully fully booked, and we've had a very good result. The location also is great for any disabled vet or just vets and their families that don't have autos. We've got buses up and down Los Feliz, Central, Brand, just a couple of blocks away from the MTA, our transportation center, the railroad connection. And then we have some great partners here, starting with Mercy Housing that has the background, and also New Directions, which has a lot of experience, and I've talked to many veterans that have gone through different New Direction programs in the past. It's a very good program operator and has been around for a long time. And then finally we have Glendale Memorial, which is an anchor in the community, and hopefully it's all going to come together. We still have a while to go before we can actually break ground, but we've taken a big step. I hope we'll take a big step today, and I think it's something that we're all going to be very proud of. I think the design is great. It works well on that particular site. I'm just very happy. I'm very happy. I've been in contact with some of the younger vets that are now attending the community colleges. When I say younger vets, this era of vets literally are not teenagers as they were in the Vietnam War. These are a little bit older vets with a lot of reservists that were called to successive tours in this part of the world, and for the most part were unable to keep their jobs between the downturn in the economy and then just being deployed year after year. So we have a lot of veterans that are maybe a little bit older than they have been in the past, a lot of female veterans, and a lot of families involved with these returning vets. So anyway, we're on the right track, and hopefully we'll be able to bring this to fruition.
Mr. Weaver?
Not comments, questions. With these actions, do we secure the monies?
We provide the commitment of the home funds that should satisfy Housing and Urban Development Department.
Now, beyond that, it's already been through Design Review Board?
It's been through the
preliminary?
first step, the preliminary.
First step.
Preliminary,
So it's still got to go back to final from
Yes.
Design Review. Environmental document?
Yes, that's
It's
been
exempt.
completed.
Still, it's exempted?
Yeah.
Okay, where else does it have to go? Back to us for review and approval of plans and specs?
To the hearing officer and to the design review board. And I fully expect to bring it back to the housing authority as well.
Okay, so there's a few steps. This is what it takes to secure the money, but nobody should expect to see groundbreaking for a number of months.
Groundbreaking would not occur
Next year.
before 12 months from today. The award of tax credits, if everything else lines up, it would be 12 months almost to the day.
I'm just afraid people would start thinking that this is it.
If I may, Mr. Chair, just wanted to reemphasize a point that Mike made in the report, but it's worth emphasizing again, is that with respect to the control of the site, that's something that Mercy Housing is still negotiating with the owner of the property, Catholic Healthcare West. That negotiation is moving forward, but it hasn't been completed yet, so it's a 60-day time table for Mercy to get an option to lease that property. And if they're not able to, then that's a condition precedent to the agreement, and the housing authority would be able to terminate the agreement if they don't satisfy that. That's something that's still being addressed.
It's not really a question, but the other thing is make sure that the numbers on page 2 agree with the staff report when it comes back.
I apologize. Could you say that again? Numbers on page 2?
The numbers on page 2 agree with the staff report. Yeah, I don't want to go into detail.
Okay.
Just check. I know one was done preliminary before the other. Just make sure when we see it again, the numbers
Okay, I will.
compute right.
Check the numbers.
I'll have my comments when you're ready for them.
Well, I'm supportive of the project. I also wanted to acknowledge Mr. Quintero and the work he's done for the past year on the Housing Authority and his emphasis on veterans and housing for veterans, which has led us to this project. It's an important focus and one that he's really spearheaded, and I think the city is going to be better for it. Path Achieve has just undertaken recently a homeless count in the city, and they identified several veterans and felt that we could, if we were committed to it, end veteran homelessness in the city within a year pretty easily. I know this won't be finished by a year, but certainly this will go a long way towards making sure that we don't have homeless veterans on our streets. I think that design is very appropriate. They put a lot of thought into it in terms of stepping the building back towards the lower level buildings to the rear. I believe the goal for all affordable housing projects is to provide the highest quality of life we can for the residents, and to also provide exemplary developments that should always be amongst the best in the neighborhoods, not the worst. And I think this one really will blend in very well. And from the way they've designed the gardens, the exterior gardens, the courtyard, I think it will provide a very high quality of life for the people who live there. I'm looking forward to seeing the next design iteration. I think they're definitely on a good path, and I hope that they're successful in securing their tax credits moving forward. Oh, and I also just want to comment that this project is fully parked in terms of the requirements under SB 1818. So there's no variances here. They're just taking advantage of what's offered in terms of incentives to build affordable housing with density bonuses and parking bonuses. And from what I've seen from visiting our affordable housing projects in the city, they tend to be overparked in general. I mean, their parking lots tend to be fairly empty compared to non-affordable housing. The people who live there just don't have multiple cars generally. Thank you, Mr. Manoukian.
Okay, for comments, as the anointed ancient warrior of the council, veteran, very happy for what Frank started. Very necessary. Even more so, I watched a special on one of the channels over the weekend, and it was a get-together of veterans of all ages at this camp. Thousands came. They were all homeless. They had no place to go. 58, I think, were being selected to go to a drug recovery location in San Diego. And some were willing to say they were on drugs just so they could have a place to go rather than back to the streets. 58 selected ones went. The others were going out the door and back onto the streets to sleep somewhere. The need is so great. They had a young woman there, back. She lost her husband. She lost her children because of drugs. She was one of those that got accepted to go in. This program apparently was made a year or more ago, and she rehabilitated, and she's out and starting a new life. But those are the far fewer things that happen for the veterans. And this country of ours has got to take more effort to help the veterans, because they come back homeless. Many of them went in young. They came back and thought the country would receive them back. No, not in these times, in the recession. They know the military life. Some were going to go back in the military because it's all they knew how to do. So we've got to do more things, including finding families for these people. Like the design, like Mr. Manoukian, I like the old style. I grew up here in the days of the Verdugos, Spanish architecture. But I'm learning gradually to adapt to this newfound modern architecture. I like the colors, separations. I assume we'll see a palette board of the materials and stuff. I know Mr. Youssef and all these used to like it, but it would be nice to see some of them just to get an idea what it's like. Parking used to be terrible on the first ADI project. It was twice as much parking as required. I talked to staff considerably on that. I think that's been adjusted where our requirements are less now, especially for people that don't have cars generally. They ride the train or whatever, or there's seniors that don't need it. And we've adjusted the parking requirements so it's more in line. It's huge savings to the developers, meaning less cost from the city to develop. It's a good location. I hope it's green technology. I haven't seen anything on that. Maybe I missed it in the report. Sure hope it meets high standards of green technology. It's a good main corridor. There's two other projects that hopefully with funding the finances can be worked out, will be developed within 2 or 3 blocks of this location. So Los Feliz is really going to be activated in the near years to come. So I'm happy with it. Okay, I'll wait for a year to see it. I hope things can work out with the hospital and get this thing going. Thank you.
I will support this project, and let's end to the positive point. And for the location, in addition to everything, I mean the hospital, the Verdugo Job Center, we should consider the one supermarket for disabled veterans to just do their shopping by walking or, you know. So I will support this project, and I'm so happy.
Thank you.
There's certainly a good location, particularly the transportation is just excellent around there. And also fine restaurants there, like Dinah's and others that are very close, and it's just an ideal area. And I certainly support this resolution.
Thank you. What process will be used to qualify the residents for this project? What kind of... I'm not familiar with Mercy Housing, so...
Okay, well, we've been doing this for a while. We have a couple of staff members. The staff, community development staff. So what we've done in the past with 9% tax credit projects is we hold a lottery because there's such a huge demand for it. But we go through all the income qualifications for all of the folks.
Is there going to be a point system again awarded for veterans? Or if there's 3,000 veterans that apply, how are you going to deal with that?
Well, yeah, we're going to have to do that. We haven't worked out exactly how we're going to prioritize.
And based on my calculations, actually, the per unit cost is approximately $458,000. Isn't that kind of high for today's market?
We feel that there...
Is it? You have $24,261,000 for the total project cost for 53 units?
Yeah, the total
average cost is approximately $458,000.
The total project cost, though, also includes 101 replacement parking spaces as well as that commercial space.
Okay.
We calculated $137 a square foot for the residential construction.
For the residential only?
Yes. We also thought, or I think it's important to say too, these numbers are preliminary. We feel that there is some potential for some cost savings on this, and we, as staff, are incredibly sensitive to the development costs.
I do support the project, and I think there's no one other that can put these pieces together like Mr. Quintero has in terms of the job center, the market, the hospital, and the transportation. I think it's a great location for it. I do support the project. I don't like modern design, and I don't like the design, but I think that fits fine over there. I'm not going to make an issue of the design, but I do believe, as Mr. Weaver said, when it comes back next time, I think the numbers should be correct, whether it's on page 2 or in the report. I would also like to request that when it comes back, we have a per square foot cost for the residential and a cost for the parking that is attributed to the hospital, the replacement cost, so we know exactly what the per unit and the per square foot cost is, so that the public knows as well that we are approving a project which is a great deal for the city of Glendale. So I would expect those numbers to be included in the report.
Happy to do that.
Okay. Do we have motions to...
I'll move for the agency resolution.
Second.
There's a motion and a second for 1B, agency resolution. Can I have a roll call for the agency, please?
Agency members: Friedman?
Yes.
Najarian? Quintero?
Yes.
Weaver?
Aye.
Chair Manukian?
Yes.
I would like to move for the authority.
Can we move them all together?
Yes.
C, D, and E?
Okay. C, D, and E.
Second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Authority members: Friedman?
Yes.
Manukian?
Yes.
Mincy?
Yes.
Najarian? Brazian?
Yes.
Weaver?
Aye.
Chair Quintero?
Yes.
Mr. Garcia, when this comes back for the council vote, can it come back on consent at the regular council meeting, or do you have to have a special daytime?
No,
Does it have to be a joint meeting again, or can it come back just for council?
No, it could come back on the council agenda
Okay.
if you'd like.
I think that would be
As
easier
mayor, we
than
can just
calling
get
it
on
a
that.
special meeting.
When will it be coming back next week?
Next
Yeah,
week.
just
Okay.
next week.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
And also, to the extent it's available, we'll let you know the status of the negotiation for the land if they're successful. And if we know next week, if we don't, we'll continue to keep the Housing Authority and City Council updated on those negotiations. Because really, the project hinges on their ability to acquire that property from the hospital.
Very good. Thank you very much.
I just wanted to add that although Mr. Najarian recused himself because of the issue with Glendale Memorial, he's very much in support of veterans housing, and had he been able to, I can't speak for him, but had he been able to vote, I'm sure he would have approved these resolutions.
So I'll move to adjourn for the Housing Authority.
Second.
We are adjourned.
Move to join for the agency.
We are adjourned for the agency as well.
Can somebody bring Mr. Najarian back? The remainder of the
Well,
meeting?
I'm sure he's watching in there.
Okay.